Okay, we're here to talk about injuries in powerlifting. Definitely something that I'm very used to.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about why people are permanently injured in powerlifting. You see this, I wouldn't call it a trend, but you see a lot of people kind of just gonna go offline for a while. It's what happened to that person? They're injured. You don't hear from them. Then sometimes they quit. But yeah, we'll talk about why people stay in this injured state for a long period of time, and we'll lay out a framework of how to assess what's causing this injury, then hopefully give you some tools to address those variables.
The first thing that we probably want to go over is how did you get injured in the first place? What caused that? What led you up to that point? I think powerlifting is very momentum based, and a lot of times when you have a lot of momentum, you tend to try and do things that you've never done before. That kind of is what powerlifting is, but at the same time, you can get ahead of yourself and then you kind of aren't paying attention to the underlying things that keep you healthy, and you're pretty fixated on the result of something, and it can just lead you down a path.
To simplify it, I would say an injury occurs when the stress on a specific area exceeds the point of tolerance. It's you're stressing this area to a point where it cannot tolerate this stress anymore. So there's a stress variable to it, component, and there's a recovery component. You can think of it as your strength programming, your powerlifting programming. There's always a stress, there's a stimulus, there's a recovery process, then you get positive adaptations. With an injury, it's the same thing, but you would get that's the negative adaptations, the stress is too high, recovery is too low, then you get to a point where an injury occurs. So when it comes to stress, what are the main influencers of stress? We said programming, technique, movement, and outside stress, external stress. Those are the main stressors. Then we have the recovery component, which is food and sleep, your general recovery, variables you take care of. That will be the recovery component of things, and you have the stressors. Then after that, it could be a stress problem or it could be a recovery problem.
Injuries usually happen also, by the way, your body is pretty resilient to an extent. It will kind of tell you before something happens, and usually you ignore it, but it usually takes a multitude of things, right? A multitude of these stressors. Mm-hmm. Your movement is slowly getting worse. You've taken a new job that you sit 7 hours a day. You have you've added a third or fourth squat day or a third deadlift day as per what people are doing lately. Mm-hmm. So you've added stress to something that maybe you're not moving good enough for, or maybe that your technique isn't good for, or the amount of muscle in your frame that you have isn't sufficient enough to handle the situation that you're giving it. Mm-hmm.
So simply put, there's a stress problem, and we'll go into those main stressors and how we can manage them and how they actually influence, stress on a specific area. Because programming, we think of it as a global stressor. Technique can also be a bit more specific. You can redistribute stress by moving a little bit differently. Then you have movement, which we think of as if you are shifting or twisting in a specific way from side to side, you are putting more stress on a specific area by how you move. Then that one area is taking more of that localized stress that it cannot tolerate. Then on top of that, there's outside stressors that we still use the same recovery budget. We don't have recovery only for training and recovery only for outside stressors. We have one recovery budget that goes into all of these stressors.
Yeah, because training progress in general is based on momentum and productivity. Talking about movement productivity, programming productivity, technique productivity, it's all productivity. But injuries are the flip of that. So if there's too much or too little of these things, then you end up in an injury because the sufficient balance wasn't kept.
Now that we covered how an injury happens, we'll go over the assessment process. Within the assessment process, we're gonna assess technique, movement, programming, outside stress, and recovery variables. So now we'll go over the technique assessment. And in this case, we have a lifter with chronic back pain. So we'll look at if there is any technical faults that could be causing this area to experience more stress. So as you can clearly see, there's a reason why his back would take a little bit of stress. What do you think, David?
Oh yeah, it looks like a lot of back right there. Quite a bit of back.
So looking at technique, you'll see, okay, like this person, how they're moving, what are they loading? Are they loading their legs or are they loading their back? And why is this area experiencing that pain? I think you can rack it. We don't want to hurt you any further. Looking at the squat itself, you can estimate how much each muscle group is taking stress. Like how much stress is his legs handling, how much stress is the back handling, just by simply looking at, okay, what's the lever arm when it comes like the back? Is like the back super bent over? Are the knees going super far forward? If the knees are going far forward, it means like the stress is probably going to be distributed primarily on the legs. If the hips are kicking back, probably like the stress is going on the back. So it could be a technical issue here that we can manipulate his technique to redistribute some of that stress away from the back so he can go below this tolerance threshold when it comes to like how much stress this back can tolerate. If it can only tolerate like a specific amount of volume, and we're basically using all of that recovery budget because he's only loading his back, we can redistribute that stress by changing how he moves so he can put some of that stress on his legs instead.
Yeah, I mean, other solutions we can do are, equipment constraints, outside constraints. We can put a box, we can do elevated heels, we can change the stance width even, we can change the situation a little bit to also manipulate things that can possibly take stress off of that area.
That could be some of our programming, like David mentioned, with like the change in equipment. That would be like more programming changes that can redistribute stress. Within, I think if we stay focused on technique, it will be mostly, okay, we're still gonna low bar squat, but maybe make some changes with like a heel elevation, tempo, pause. That can still go under programming. But I guess just making changes to how the person moves will be strictly technical variables there. So the second variable we're going to check is his movement. So looking at his squat from the front will show us where he loads, which side of his body loads more. Maybe that will give us some indicators of why one area is taking more of the beating. So now you look at his squat, you see out of the hole, he shifts into his right, shifts out of his left, and goes into his right side. Let's say for this case, he is experiencing some signs of right-sided discomfort, maybe like right QL, maybe if it's his back, and he's like, okay, more specifically, my right back, the right side of my back is feeling more tense. I feel it more there. Then we can look at the movement, and as you see, there's indicators within the movement that tell us, okay, he is loading this side more because his center of mass is shifted to that side, and the solution would be to redistribute that stress by shifting his center of mass away from that side.
And the third aspect of all of these is programming. So now we're gonna check and see how much is being done here.
So yeah, Jacob, walk us through what you do on your day one squats on Monday.
On Monday, I hit my primary squat, low bar. I think it's my week one. Yeah, it's my week one. RP 8-9 single, and then a 3x8 after that at RP 7-8. Then another single at 8 on top of that, just to really prime me,
Your technique.
Yeah. And then I spam these hyperextensions so my back can feel better.
Yeah, like stronger. You want to
Yeah,
build up the back strength.
Yeah.
Gotta be resilient.
And then after that, we have the bell squat RDLs.
Bell squat RDLs. Yeah. 3x12, 0 to 1 RER, whatever that means. Tuesday, I do the beltless deficit sumo deadlifts.
These technique, huh?
Yeah, work on my technique, makes my back super strong. I do a double, and then I do a 2x7. On Wednesday, I do my SSB good mornings.
Looking at the programming, you can see a theme here with the amount of stress he is handling. We see heavy squats, we see heavy sumo deficit deadlifts, and a lot of hinging movements. You can see where that stress is going. There's a lot of workload when it comes to loading the back. So if the back is hurting and you see this much stress accumulated within the programming, maybe there's something there. You can probably start to adjust the amount of stress by dropping some of these movements.
Now we're gonna go over external stress. The external stress can definitely put the cherry on top, we would say, as to how a lot of injuries occur. So we just went over Jacob's programming, and so now we're gonna ask Jacob how his externals are.
Yeah, my externals are pretty good. I would say, I work about 40 hours a week.
Construction job?
Construction job, yeah, I have a construction job with my dad for free, but I need to get money, so he might pay me. I get around like 5 hours of sleep since I gotta wake up at like 5 a.m. to go to the site. My girlfriend did just break up with me, but I am cutting so that I can like get better and get another girlfriend soon enough,
How was the school? How many hours were you taking?
So I failed like 3 classes last semester, so I'm taking about 17 credit hours next semester to like make up for it. And I got like 5 summer classes right now.
How was the eating? The eating and sleep. Yeah, eating.
I'm eating about like probably maybe 1,500 calories a day. I'm on that cut. I really want to get shredded.
You're trying to get shredded.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about his recovery variables, David? Do you think it's optimal?
I mean, almost above average for your average 20-year-old. Maybe a little bit stressful in one direction or another. Definitely need to find yourself a girlfriend. Bring that stress down, huh, Jacob?
Yep.
So to summarize the framework or the process of how we go about managing injuries, the first step was looking at how the injury occurs, and we mentioned the stress and recovery variables and how those play together. Then going into like the main controllable variables, which is the assessment process of how do we track those variables and how much of a stress are they putting on those specific areas. Then once we found the limiting factors, it could be one or multiple bottlenecks, we set indicators or key performance indicators to track progress when it comes to programming, and just kind of looking at the actual stress in the programming and all the other variables. Then once we figured out the variables, we've gone through the assessment, figured out the bottlenecks, and we have a way to track progress. We create a plan based on the limiting factors, and like that plan can be anything from like programming, changing technique, movement, trying to drop outside stress or improve recovery. Then after all of these things are addressed, we start tracking the changes in that injury. Is the person progressing? Is the weight on the bar going up and the pain levels are going down? And that will be the testing and retesting part of the process to see, okay, is there actual net positive changes when it comes to this injury? And like if there isn't, then you would go back and change the plan or reassess. If there is positive changes, you're headed in the right direction. And like if there's still, like you've done everything that you can, then that's time to refer out and it gets out of your scope as a powerlifting coach. You can only control the programming, technique, movement, and I guess try to do your best when it comes to managing outside stress. If that's all you can do and like nothing is improving, then you would give it to someone else.